When my daughter told me she wanted to live with her father, I swear the world went quiet in a way I'd never heard before. I remember the way her voice trembled when she said it, like she was trying to sound brave but her throat couldn't keep up. We were standing in our tiny kitchen, the one with the humming refrigerator and the chipped blue tile she used to help me scrub on Saturdays. The late afternoon sun was slanting through the blinds, cutting lines of gold across her face. Her backpack was already on her shoulders, that hurt the most, like she had made the decision long before she found the courage to say it. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. My hands were still damp from washing the dishes, and all I could think about was how small she looked even though she was almost 13 now. Her curls were pulled into that messy bun she loved, and her eyes, Lord, her eyes wouldn't meet mine. She kept looking at the doorway like someone was waiting for her on the other side. Her father, Daniel, a man who had disappointed her more times than I could count, yet somehow still lived in the soft corners of her heart. That's the thing about fathers, even when they fail, children keep hoping. I finally managed to whisper, "Sweetheart, why?" But she just shook her head, biting her lip the way she used to when she was scared of thunderstorms. I just want to. That was it, no explanation, no anger, just a quiet request wrapped in something I didn't recognize, something she was trying to hide from me. My chest tightened and I felt this strange mix of grief and confusion twist through me. I wasn't a perfect mother, but I had been steady, present. I'd packed lunches, attended every parent-teacher conference, sat through every dentist appointment. I'd held her through nightmares, through stomach flu, through the divorce that almost cracked both our hearts open. So why now? Why this? Outside, a car engine rumbled, Daniel's car. I could hear his faint knock at the front door, polite, soft, almost practiced, like he knew this was coming. My daughter took a step back, just one, but it felt like a mile. Her fingers curled around the strap of her backpack, and something inside me whispered that she wasn't telling me the whole truth. That this wasn't her idea. That something had happened. And that whatever it wasn't good. As she walked past me toward the doorway, a cold shiver went down my spine, the kind that warns a mother before her mind even understands why. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, and I was about to find out. If you had asked me a month before that day whether my daughter would ever choose to live with her father, I would have laughed not out of arrogance but out of certainty. The kind of certainty that grows from years of routine, from shared breakfasts and late-night talks and every tiny thing in between. Our life had been imperfect, yes, but steady, and sometimes steady is all a child needs. Back then, mornings in our home followed the same rhythm. I'd wake up before the sun, listening to the house stretch and settle around me, the air vents humming, the water heater clicking on, the soft, distant buzz of the neighborhood waking up. I'd tie my hair back, wrap my robe tighter, and start the coffee. The smell always filled the whole kitchen, warm and earthy, grounding me before the day began. My daughter Lily was never far behind. She'd shuffle into the kitchen with her blanket still wrapped around her shoulders, hair sticking out in every direction. She'd sit silently for the first few minutes, rubbing her eyes, letting the world come into focus slowly. I knew not to talk too much until she had cereal in front of her. She was sensitive in the mornings, thoughtful just like I was at her age. Sometimes she'd hum, a little tune she never finished, 3 notes, then silence. She did it when she was content, peaceful. Those mornings, they felt like home. After breakfast, we'd drive to her middle school. She liked rolling down the window even when the air was cold, letting the wind slap her cheeks awake. She'd make little comments about people we passed, the man who always jogged in neon shorts, the old couple who walked their dog rain or shine, the teenager who refused to wear a jacket even in December. These were our everyday conversations, the ones that stitch a life together. I spent my afternoons at the library where I worked. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. I loved the soft quiet, the rustling pages, the way people's faces softened when they found the book they were searching for. I loved the smell, too, that blend of paper and dust and faint vanilla. It reminded me of being 9 years old, hiding in the school library when the world felt too loud. When school ended, Lily would come to the library and sit at my desk doing her homework. She'd twirl her pen between her fingers, tap her shoe rhythmically on the floor, chew gum even though I asked her not to, and every now and then she'd lift her head and say, "Mom, can I read something for you?" Then she'd read a paragraph from a book she liked, her voice soft but animated. She'd smile afterward, waiting for my reaction like it meant something to her. It did mean something to me. Those moments made me feel like I was doing at least one thing right. As for Daniel, well, he had his place in our lives, but it was limited by his own design. The divorce had been messy in its own quiet way, not loud, not violent, just full of absence. He'd grown distant long before he finally said the words. Lily was 8 then. I remember her drawing pictures of all three of us together even after he moved out. I remember the way she'd ask, "Is Daddy coming tonight?" And how I'd have to say, "Not tonight, baby," more often than any mother should. His visits were inconsistent. Some months he'd show up every weekend with a new plan, a hike, a movie night, a craft project. Then he'd disappear for 6 weeks without explanation. Lily would sit by the window sometimes, watching cars pass, hoping one of them would be his. I hated him for that, quietly, privately. I never let her hear the bitterness in my voice, but it lived in me like a bruise that never fully healed. Still, she adored him, even when he failed her, even when he forgot her birthday one year, even when he canceled last minute on the school recital she practiced for all month. She forgave him in a way only children can. And I learned to live with that. But despite her love for him, she never, not once, mentioned wanting to live with him. In fact, she used to say the opposite. Whenever she had to go stay for a weekend, she'd pack lightly, as if she wanted to make it clear she wasn't staying long. She'd hug me tight before leaving, whispering, "I'll be back before you know it." So when she stood in that kitchen and said she wanted to live with her father, it didn't fit. It didn't match any pattern, any feeling, any truth I believed I understood about my child. Looking back, I can see all the tiny things I missed, the small looks, the questions she didn't ask, the ones she did. But at the time, life felt steady, predictable. A mother never realizes she's in the calm before the storm until the wind changes. And mine was about to change. I just didn't know it yet. The weekend before everything shifted, Lily and I had one of those quiet Sundays that settle into your memory without you realizing why. It was early October, the kind of day where the air smells like dry leaves and the sun feels a little softer. Decided to clean the apartment not because it was messy, but because fall always made me want to reset, refresh, make the space feel warm again. Lily was in charge of dusting the bookshelves. She took the job seriously, dragging a chair over and climbing up like she was scaling a mountain. Every so often she'd pause, pull out a book, flip through it, then glance at me to see if I noticed. She loved performing little responsibilities like that. Being trusted made her stand taller. "Mom," she said at one point, her voice almost casual, "do you think people can change? Like, completely change?" I was wiping down the counter, my back turned to her. "Change? In what way?" She shrugged, still flipping pages. "I don't know, just like someone who used to be bad at something suddenly gets better, or someone who wasn't around before becomes more responsible." Her tone was light, but the question was. I felt a little tug inside my chest, but I didn't want to read too much into it. 13-year-olds ask heavy questions all the time. "Well," I said, turning to face her, "I think people can try to change, and sometimes they do, but usually it takes time and consistency. Why?" She shook her head quickly. "No reason, just wondering." Then she hopped off the chair and went back to dusting, humming her little three-note tune. Looking back, that moment stands out like a flare in the dark, but at the time, I let it pass. Later that afternoon, we went grocery shopping. Lily pushed the cart in her usual zigzag pattern, nearly bumping into a display of soup cans. She giggled, I rolled my eyes, and for a second everything felt effortlessly normal. She tossed her favorite yogurt into the cart, and I made a face. "You know that brand costs twice as much, right?" She grinned, "But it tastes twice as good." It was one of those ordinary exchanges, small, trivial, comforting. I didn't realize it would be one of the last like it. That evening, she curled up beside me on the couch while I folded laundry. Her head rested on my shoulder. She smelled like coconut conditioner and dryer sheets. We watched an old movie she'd seen a dozen times. She said some of the lines out loud before the characters did, a habit that usually annoyed me, but for some reason that night I just let her do it. She seemed peaceful, safe, mine. Maybe that's why I didn't see the signs. Maybe that's why I believed Ev. Everything was fine. But underneath that softness, something was brewing, a secret she hadn't told me yet, a fear she hadn't named, and a loyalty she was questioning. The next day, while I was at the library, Daniel called. His name flashing on my phone always sent a strange pulse through me, not romantic, not angry, just unsettled, like seeing a crack you thought you repaired. He rarely called unless something was wrong, or unless he needed something. I stepped into the break room and answered, "Hello." His voice was softer than usual. "Hey, how's your day?" Small talk, that wasn't like him. "It's fine, is something going on?" He cleared his throat, I could hear cars in the background. "I talked to Lily yesterday." My stomach tightened. "Okay, about what?" She mentioned wanting to spend more time with me. He paused, maybe even stay with me for a while. My grip on the phone tightened. She said that. Yeah, he hesitated. I didn't push her if that's what you're thinking, she brought it up. My heartbeat quickened. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was confusion, a deep, hollow confusion. I forced my voice to stay calm. And what did you say? He sighed. I told her we could talk about it, but I wanted to check in with you first. Check in with me, like we were co-parenting smoothly all these years, like he hadn't disappeared for weeks at a time. But the worst part, he sounded sincere. He sounded like he believed he was doing the right thing. I pressed a hand to the counter to steady myself. All right, I'll talk to her. He exhaled, relieved. Thanks. We hung up, but my mind never returned to work. I spent the rest of the day replaying every detail of that weekend, every small question she'd asked, every silence, every time she avoided eye contact. Something had shifted, and now I had to figure out what. That evening, Lily came to the library like usual. She set her backpack down gently, too gently, then she sat without speaking. She didn't hum, she didn't tap her foot. She just stared at her homework, pencil unmoving. I watched her from the corner of my eye, the way mothers do when they know something is wrong but don't want to scare the truth away. Lily, I said softly, is everything okay? She nodded quickly, too quickly. Yeah, fine. Her voice cracked on the word fine. But she didn't offer anything more. And I didn't push. Not yet. Because a mother knows, sometimes, a child needs space before they tell you what's breaking them. But I felt the first crack in the world we had built. And I felt the cold air blowing through it. I just didn't know the storm had already begun. The first clue didn't come as a dramatic moment or some obvious sign. It arrived quietly, the way a draft slips through a cracked window, soft enough to ignore but persistent enough that you eventually feel the chill. It was a Thursday afternoon, 2 days after Daniel's call. I was standing in the hallway of Lily's school, waiting for her to come out. Parents milled around, some on their phones, others chatting. The air smelled faintly of cafeteria pizza and floor cleaner. When the bell rang, kids spilled out like a wave. Some ran, some dawdled, some were loud, some were sleepy, but Lily wasn't among them. 5 minutes passed, then 10. That wasn't like her. She was always one of the first out, eager to leave the noise and chaos behind. I checked my phone, no messages. Finally, I stepped closer to the doorway. That's when I heard her voice, quiet, low, almost shaking. No, Dad, I don't want to, not like this. My chest tightened. I took a step forward, but I froze before rounding the corner. I knew eavesdropping was wrong, but something in me, something ancient and maternal, told me to listen. Another voice crackled through the phone, too faint to make out, but it was unmistakably Daniel. Lily's back was turned to me, her small shoulders tense beneath her pastel backpack. She pressed a hand against her forehead like she was holding herself together. It's too early, she whispered. Mom will, she'll be upset. Silence. Then, please don't make me say it, I don't want to lie. Lie. I felt my stomach drop. Another burst of muffled words from Daniel, a little sharper this time. Lily swallowed hard. Okay, okay, I'll try, but I don't like this. I stepped forward, and just before she turned, she wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie, quick, fast, like she'd practiced it. When she saw me, she straightened her posture immediately. Hi, Mom, she said, voice too bright, too rehearsed. I forced a smile. Hey, sweetheart, you okay? I was waiting for you. She nodded hard. Yeah, sorry, I dropped something in class. A lie, a small one, but it was the first lie she'd ever told me with that kind of stiffness in her voice. That was the first clue. But it wasn't the last. On the drive home, Lily stared out the window with her jaw clenched. The sky was turning orange, the kind of glow that usually softened her. Mood, but she barely blinked. I kept my voice gentle. Your dad called me a couple days ago. Her fingers tightened around the seatbelt. Oh, she said. Just that one syllable, but it was packed with something I couldn't read. He told me you were thinking about spending more time with him. She didn't answer. Her silence felt heavy, like she was walking on a rope stretched between two rooftops. Finally, she said, I don't know, I was just thinking. Her voice was quiet, defeated. I wanted to reach out and hold her hand, but something told me not to push. Not yet. Okay, I said softly, we can talk when you're ready. She nodded, still looking out the window. But I saw her reflection in the glass, the way her eyes glistened, the way she bit her lip hard enough to leave a mark. Something was wrong. Something more than a sudden desire to live with her father. Later that night, after she went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, the lamp casting a warm circle of light on the floor. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the neighbor's TV through the wall and the creak of the pipes settling. My mind kept circling back to her words. I don't want to lie. Lie about what? Lie to whom? And why did Daniel sound like he was pushing her? I hated thinking badly of him, but I knew Daniel. I knew the way he used charm like a tool, the way he could talk someone into something before they even realized it. He was always better with promises than follow through. But this felt different. Calculated, secretive. I stood and walked to Lily's bedroom door. I cracked it open quietly. She was asleep, curled up tight, her arms wrapped around the pillow the way she used to when she was afraid of thunderstorms. Her face looked tense even in rest, her brows scrunched, her lips pressed together. My heart ached. Mothers can feel when their children are hurting, not just by what they say, but by what they hide. I closed the door gently and stood in the hallway, leaning against the wall. My breath felt shallow. Something was shifting, and for the first time, I felt genuinely scared. Not of losing her, but of what was pulling her away. The second clue came the next morning. I found her backpack half-zipped on the couch before school. A paper was sticking out, not enough to look like snooping if I pushed it back in carefully. I didn't mean to read it, but I caught a glimpse of a sentence written in Lily's handwriting, just one line. I'll try to tell her this weekend. Tell me what? My fingers froze on the zipper. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I didn't read the rest. I didn't want to betray her trust like that, but that one sentence rattled me all morning. It clung to me at work. It followed me home. And by the time the weekend arrived, I knew. A storm was coming. And whatever truth she was struggling to say, it wasn't a small one. The weekend arrived with an eerie sort of quiet, the kind that settles on your skin and makes every ordinary sound feel sharper. I kept telling myself not to overthink things, not to assume the worst. Kids Lily's age go through moods, shifts, internal storms. I reminded myself of that over and over. But mothers know when a storm is personal. Saturday morning, Lily moved around the apartment like she was made of glass, careful, quiet, avoiding corners where she might collide with conversation. She kept her hoodie on even though the apartment was warm. Her hands were deep inside the pockets, shoulders hunched as if she was bracing for something. I tried to keep things normal. Do you want pancakes or eggs? I asked her. She shrugged without looking up. Whatever you want. That wasn't like her. She always had an opinion about breakfast. Always. I made pancakes with chocolate chips, her favorite, and set them on the table. She took 2 bites and pushed the plate away. Not hungry, she whispered. The uneaten pancakes felt like a warning. Around noon, she went to her room. Usually, she'd leave the door open, music drifting out, occasionally calling me in to show me a meme or a TikTok she thought was funny. But today, the door closed behind her gently. Too gently. A soft click. I stood in the hallway for a moment listening. Nothing. No music, no humming, no movement, just silence. My fingers hovered over the doorknob, but I didn't want to break her trust. Not without reason. I went back to the living room and pretended to read, but my eyes never focused on the words. Every few minutes, I glanced at her door as though the truth might seep out from under it. Just after 1, my phone buzzed. Daniel. I stared at the screen, something cold slipping down my spine. I answered reluctantly. Hey, he said too casually. Just checking in. Is Lily ready to talk about, the living thing? My jaw clenched. No, we haven't talked yet. Well, maybe you should. I mean, she seemed pretty sure when we talked. I closed my eyes, fighting the irritation rising inside me. Danny. I told you I'll talk to her when she's ready. Pushing her isn't going to help. He exhaled sharply, annoyed. I'm just saying sometimes kids need a little nudge. No, I said, voice steady. They need safety and honesty, not pressure. He didn't respond for a moment. Then in a quieter tone, yeah, okay, you're right, sorry. But something in his voice didn't match the apology. After the call, I walked to Lily's door again. I knocked gently. Sweetheart, you want to come out for a bit? Silence. I hesitated. We can talk or just watch a movie. Whatever you want, I'm here. A soft voice finally came through the door. Can we talk later? I'm tired. Of course, I said. But the truth was becoming clearer by the hour. She wasn't just tired. She was hiding something. Later that evening, Lily came out of her room holding her phone close to her chest. She sat on the edge of the couch, staring down at the floor. Mom, she whispered. My heart jumped. Yes, baby. She opened her mouth to speak, and then her phone buzzed. The sound made her flinch. She looked at the screen too quickly. Her face went pale. Without saying a word, she stood and walked back to her room. Her door closed again. I felt something squeeze around my ribs, hard. It wasn't normal for her to guard her phone like that. She used to leave it everywhere in the bathroom, on the couch cushions, even in the fridge once when she was looking for a snack. But now she held it like a secret. Or like a threat. That night while she slept, I checked the phone logs on our shared carrier account, something I'd never done before unless I needed to verify data usage. But the knot in my chest was too tight and I needed answers. Daniel had called or texted her 16 times in the past 3 days. 16. My breath caught. I pressed a hand over my mouth, trying not to make a sound. Why so many messages? What was he saying? What was he asking her to do? My head spun with possibilities, most of them painful. Daniel had always been good at pushing boundaries when he wanted something, and now he wanted her. That much was clear, but why? Was it guilt? Loneliness? Ego? Some new personal crisis? Or something worse? The idea of him dragging her into his chaos made my stomach twist. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator, the occasional car passing outside, the faint movement of Lily shifting in her bed across the hall. I thought about the call at school. I don't want to lie. I thought about the note in her backpack. I'll try to tell her this weekend. And the messages, 16 messages. Each one was another piece of a puzzle I didn't yet understand. But the picture forming in my mind terrified me. The next morning, Sunday, Lily came into the kitchen looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Her lips were dry, and she kept tugging at the sleeve of her hoodie. Did you sleep okay? I asked gently. She nodded without meeting my eyes. Yeah. Another lie. She poured herself a bowl of cereal, but she didn't eat it. She just stirred it around with her spoon, the crunch turning soggy in the milk. I sat across from her. Sweetheart, I'm here. Whatever it is, you can tell me. Her eyes lifted to mine for just a second. A single second. And in that second, I saw fear. Not anger. Not rebellion. Fear. She opened her mouth, a word forming, Mom, but then her phone buzzed again. The sound cut through the kitchen like a knife. She jerked, grabbed it, and clutched it with trembling hands. Lily, I whispered, who keeps messaging you? Her breath hitched. I can't. Can't what? She shook her head violently, tears filling her eyes. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. She stood up, chair scraping back, and ran to her room. The door slammed. I sat frozen, heart pounding, the truth pressing in from all sides. Something was happening. Something that involved her father. Something she felt trapped inside. And I realized with a sudden, painful clarity. My daughter wasn't pulling away from me. She was being pulled. I don't think anything prepares a mother for the moment she realizes her child isn't safe, not from a stranger, not from the world, but from someone they love. It was Sunday evening when everything finally broke open. Lily had stayed in her room for most of the day. I'd knock gently every hour or so, asking if she wanted to eat, rest, talk, anything. She'd answer with the same soft, trembling, I'm okay, even though she clearly was. By late afternoon, the apartment felt heavy, like the walls were holding their breath with me. Around 6, I heard her footsteps. Slow, hesitant. She came out of her room with her hoodie pulled tight around her face. Her eyes were red and she avoided looking directly at me. Mom, she whispered, can we go for a walk? A walk? Not a movie, not dinner, not a drive. A walk. I swallowed hard and nodded. Of course. We stepped outside into the early evening air. East sky was streaked with pink and gold, the temperature cool enough to make the leaves rustle against the pavement. Lily walked slightly ahead of me, her hands deep in her pockets, shoulders curled inward. We reached the small park near the end of our street, the same place where I'd taught her to ride her bike when she was 6. She sat on a bench, the same old wooden one with peeling blue paint. I sat beside her, leaving space, giving her room to breathe. For a long moment, she didn't speak. She kicked at the gravel lightly with her shoe. Then she whispered, "Mom, please don't be mad." My heart clenched. "I'm not mad, sweetheart, I'm just worried." Her lips trembled. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should tell you. I moved a little closer. "Tell me what, baby." She pulled her phone from her pocket slowly, as if it weighed 100 pounds. She held it out to me with trembling hands. The screen was lit up. A text thread with Dad. Her voice cracked as she said, "I think he's mad at me and I don't know why." I took the phone gently, bracing myself. I scrolled up, the thread went on for days. Dozens of messages, some short, some long, some sent late at night, long after she should have been sleeping. And then I reached the part that made my entire body go cold. "Daniel, you need to tell your mom you want to live with me. Don't make her think it was my idea. Daniel, if you want me to stay in your life, Lily, you have to show you're serious. Daniel, you said you missed me. If that's true, then prove it. Daniel, I already told people you're moving in. Don't humiliate me." I stopped breathing. Humiliate him. Prove it. Stay in his life. He wasn't asking, he was manipulating her. Using guilt, pressure, emotional blackmail. On a 13-year-old child. My hands shook as I read. There was more. "Daniel, I can't keep doing this if you won't even stand up for me. I'm trying here, don't make me regret it. Daniel, you know your mom doesn't need you the way I do. You don't say something like that to a child unless you're trying to tear her in half." I scrolled further, a message from last night. "Daniel, remember what we talked about, just tell her. If you don't, I'll know you don't really care." Lily sniffed beside me, wiping her nose with her sleeve. He kept saying he'd be sad if I didn't choose him, and I thought maybe he needed me. She hiccuped, "I thought maybe if I went to live with him, he'd stop being sad." My heart fractured. I put the phone down and gently cupped her face in my hands. "Sweetheart, your job isn't to fix your father. It isn't to protect his feelings. You are a child, you are my child, and you deserve to feel safe, not scared, not pressured." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I didn't want you to think I didn't love you." "Oh, Lily," my voice cracked. "I never thought that, not for 1 second." She leaned into me, her small body shaking as she cried. I wrapped my arms around her, letting her sob into my shoulder. The park was quiet except for the faint sound of wind moving through the trees and her quiet, broken breaths. After a long moment, she whispered, "Mom, there's more." My stomach tightened. "Okay, tell me when you're ready." She reached for the phone again with trembling fingers, scrolling down until she found the part she wanted me to see. Then she handed it back. One message from Daniel, sent just this morning. "Daniel, if you don't tell her today, I'll come talk to her myself, and it won't be pretty." Not pretty. My head buzzed like static. I tried to steady my breathing, but the anger, the betrayal, the disbelief, it churned together so violently I felt dizzy. He was threatening her, intimidating her, using her love, her loyalty, her fear to get what he wanted. "Mom," she whispered, voice trembling, "did I do something wrong?" I shook my head firmly. "No, baby, you did nothing wrong, nothing." She let out a shaky exhale. "I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to hate him." I pulled her close again. "I don't hate anybody, but I will always protect you, always." Her fingers clutched my shirt, desperate. "I don't want to live with him, I never did, I just didn't know how to make him stop asking. He got mad when I said no, he said I wasn't trying." Her voice cracked on that last word, and I felt something sharp twist inside me, a mixture of heartbreak and fury I had never felt before. I kissed the top of her head. "You're safe now, you told me, I've got this." Because now I knew the truth. Daniel wasn't trying to reconnect with his daughter. He was trying to claim her. Control her. Use her. And he thought he could do it quietly, behind my back, behind her fear, behind the loyalty she still held for him. He had no idea who he was dealing with. I wiped her tears gently. Sweetheart, listen to me. What he did is not okay, and I'm going to make sure he never scares you like this again. She looked up at me, eyes full of fragile hope. Are you mad at me? I shook my head. No, I'm proud of you. You told the truth even though you were scared. That takes strength. She exhaled shakily and leaned against me as the last light of the day faded behind the trees. And there, in that quiet park, with her head resting on my shoulder and my arms wrapped around her, I made a silent promise. I would protect her. I would confront him. And I would not let him manipulate her again. Not ever. For the rest of that night, I stayed close to Lily. I made us tea, the chamomile kind she used to drink when she was younger and afraid of thunderstorms. She wrapped both hands around the mug as if warming herself from the inside out. Every so often, she'd glance at her phone with this tiny flinch, a reflex born from days of pressure. I finally said, let's turn it off for tonight, okay? She nodded quickly, relieved, and handed it to me without hesitation. I powered it down and placed it in a drawer, not to hide it from her, but to give her peace. She fell asleep on the couch beside me, head on my lap, breathing slow and shaky. I stroked her hair and watched the rise and fall of her chest, feeling the weight of everything she had been carrying. She was 13, a child, and he had placed responsibilities on her shoulders that belonged to adults. When she finally drifted into deep sleep, I carefully lifted her and moved her to her room. She mumbled in her dream something about "I'm sorry," and I had to swallow a wave of emotion that rose sharp in my throat. After covering her with a blanket, I stepped into the hallway, closing the door halfway, just enough to hear her if she woke. The apartment felt different now. Not safe. Not steady. Not ours. There was something tainted in the air, the residue of betrayal. And I knew exactly what I had to do. I sat at the dining table and pulled Daniel's number up on my phone. For a moment, my finger hovered over the call button. I imagined his voice, smooth, self-assured, rehearsed. He'd probably try to explain, or manipulate, or twist the story into something where he wasn't at fault. But there wasn't going to be a discussion. Not anymore. I hit call. He answered almost instantly, as if he'd been waiting. Hey, been wondering when you'd. Stop talking, I said quietly. He went silent. My voice came out colder than I expected, steady, calm, sharp. I read the messages you sent our daughter. A beat of silence. Then feigned innocence. Messages what? Daniel. I said his name the way you put a period at the end of a sentence. Another pause. Zovd. Calculated. I didn't mean. You told her to lie to me. He exhaled hard. Okay, look. You threatened her. That's not. You told her I didn't need her. That was taken out of. You guilted her, manipulated her, pressured her. His voice rose, indignant. I was trying to connect with her. You don't get to control her life. Control, my voice sharpened. You tried to force her to choose you. You made her believe her love for me was a betrayal to you. You made her fear disappointing you. That isn't connection, Daniel. That's emotional abuse. Silence. A long, heavy silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight. You're being dramatic. I'm being a mother. Lily told me she wanted to live with me, he insisted. She did, I swear she did. I breathed in slowly, letting his lie hang in the air. She told me everything, I said. She didn't want to live with you, she wanted you to stop asking. She wanted you to stop putting it on her shoulders, and she was terrified because you made her feel like she was responsible for your happiness. He started to speak again, but I cut him off. You will not contact her again. That snapped him. Excuse me. You heard me. You don't get to talk to her until we figure this out legally. He scoffed loudly. You think you can do that? I'm her father. I have rights. You lost the right to speak to her alone the moment you used fear to manipulate her. He laughed, a bitter, angry sound. You're unbelievable. You always think you're the hero in every situation. No, I said softly, just hers. A sharper silence followed. I could hear him breathing too fast, his frustration escalating. Daniel didn't like being confronted, never had. Any challenge to his authority felt like an attack. Finally, he spoke, voice low. You're blowing this out of proportion. You threaten a child, I said, and you lose the privilege of access. End of conversation. Don't do this, Emma, he warned. You know I can make things difficult. I closed my eyes. You already did. Then I hung up. My hand trembled as I set the phone down, not from fear, from the adrenaline of protecting my daughter, and from the realization that things were far from over. I expected him to text, to call, to rage, but he didn't, not that night. Instead, silence settled, the kind that feels more dangerous than noise. The next morning, Lily woke up looking lighter though still fragile. I made her oatmeal with cinnamon and she actually ate it tiny bite by tiny bite. Afterward, she curled into my side on the couch, her head resting against my arm. Mom, she whispered. Oh yes, baby. Are you mad at Dad? I took a breath. I'm mad at what he did, not at the fact that he's your father. She nodded slowly. I don't want him to hate me. I hugged her close. No one who loves you should ever make you feel afraid of losing them. Her breathing steadied. After a moment, she looked up at me. Are you going to tell him he can't talk to me anymore? I already did. She blinked, and he didn't get mad. He got loud, I said, but loud doesn't scare me. She smiled weakly. It scares me. I know, I whispered. That's why I spoke for you. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. She leaned against me, small and wronged and brave. I realized then that Lily wasn't afraid of losing him. She was afraid of disappointing him. And he knew it. I used it. But he didn't know something even stronger. The bond between a child and a present mother, the kind who shows up, stays, listens, is not something you can manipulate into breaking. He had underestimated it. He had underestimated me. And in doing so, he set into motion a confrontation that would unravel everything he'd tried to build behind closed doors. I held Lily tightly, feeling her heartbeat slow and steady against my side. This wasn't the end. Not yet. The truth was spreading, and soon the world outside our apartment would see exactly what he had done. And the consequences would begin. On Monday morning, I woke before dawn with a heaviness in my chest that told me the situation with Daniel couldn't wait. I lay there for a moment, listening to Lily's soft breathing through the thin wall between our rooms. She'd finally slept through the night, the first time in days, and I wasn't about to let anything disturb that peace. But I had work to do. Quietly, carefully, I got out of bed and made a pot of coffee. The smell filled the apartment, warm and grounding. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, something I hadn't used in years. I clicked a pen and began writing, listing everything I'd need to do. Speak to an attorney. Document the messages. Contact the school counselor. Consult a child psychologist. Request modification of custody terms. Protect Lily's mental and emotional well-being. With each line, the fog in my mind cleared a little. I wasn't reacting out of rage or emotion. I was responding as a mother who understood the weight of what had happened. Daniel had crossed a boundary that wasn't just emotional, it was legal. Before Lily woke up, I opened my laptop and emailed a family lawyer I trusted, a woman I'd met during the divorce who had a reputation for being firm without being cruel. I simply wrote, "There has been an incident involving emotional manipulation of my daughter. I need to talk urgently." I hit send. Then I woke Lily gently. She blinked awake with that same exhausted softness, but her face didn't carry the tightness it had a few days earlier. "Mom, do I have to go to school?" she asked. "You don't have to do anything that feels too heavy today," I said, "but I think meeting with the school counselor might help, only if you want to." She nodded slowly, "Okay." We ate breakfast in silence, not uneasy silence, but healing silence. She kept glancing at me as though checking to see if I was still solid, still steady. I was. When we arrived at the school, the counselor, Mrs. Hart, welcomed us into her office. A warm room with soft lighting, shelves of board games, and an artificial plant in the corner that Lily had always liked. Mrs. Hart was in her mid-50s, calm, gentle, and observant. Lily trusted her, and so did I. I let Lily tell the story in her own words. She sat on the small couch, hands pulled into her sleeves, voice barely above a whisper. He said if I didn't tell my mom, he would, and that it wouldn't be pretty. Mrs. Hart's expression remained steady, but her eyes sharpened with concern. And that made you feel scared? She asked softly. Lily nodded, tears pooling but not falling. And why didn't you tell your mom right away? Because, she paused, swallowing hard. I didn't want to hurt her, and I didn't want Dad to be mad at me. Mrs. Hart glanced at me, not judgmentally, but with a knowing sadness. That's a lot for a child to carry. Lily's voice cracked. I don't want to choose between them. You don't have to, Mrs. Hart said immediately. Your job isn't to pick sides, your job is to be a kid. I watched Lily's face soften ever so slightly, relief trickling in like warm sunlight. Mrs. Hart took notes, asking Lily gentle questions, helping her express the fear she'd buried for weeks. At the end of the session, she asked Lily to step outside for a moment so she could speak to me alone. When the door closed, her voice lowered. Emma, this is serious. What he said, what he demanded, it crosses several lines. I'm required to document this, not to punish him, but to protect Lily and ensure the school can support her properly. I nodded, I understand. She took my hand, squeezing it gently. You're doing the right thing. I exhaled slowly, I hope so. You are, she said firmly, and Lily knows it. From the school, we went straight to the attorney's office. Lily insisted on coming with me. She didn't want to be alone, and I didn't want to leave her. The attorney, Ms. Reyes, greeted us warmly. She sat with perfect posture, wearing a navy suit and calm expression that made her seem unshakable. After Lily settled with a book in the corner, I handed Ms. Reyes screenshots of the messages. She read in silence, jaw tightening with each line. After a moment, she looked up. This isn't just inappropriate, this is coercive control. If necessary, we can seek an emergency order limiting his contact. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. I don't want to cut him out of her life, I just want him supervised, and I want her safe. A court will understand that, she said, especially with these messages. She paused, then added, did Lily express fear or physical threat? Yes, I said quietly. Fear, she said she was scared of disappointing him and scared to tell me. Ms. Reyes made a note. That's enough, you did the right thing contacting me. We discussed next steps, legal filings, documentation, therapy referrals. It was overwhelming but necessary, and for the first time in days, I felt control returning to my hands. Not power, not dominance, just agency. The ability to protect my child. When we left the office, Lily slipped her hand into mine. She hadn't done that in years, not since she was little. Mom, she whispered. Oh yes. Are we in trouble? I shook my head. No, baby, we're doing what's right, that's never trouble. She leaned into my side as we walked to the car. And then she said something that nearly broke me. When I'm with you, I feel safe. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. That's how it should always be. And as we drove home, I made myself a promise. If Daniel wanted a battle, he would not get a loud one or a messy one or a cruel one. He would get a mother's justice, quiet, steady, undeniable. And he would learn that the strength he tried to exploit in our daughter lived 10 times stronger in me. This was only the beginning. By Tuesday morning, the air in our apartment felt different. Still tense, still tender, but no longer suffocating. Lily moved a little freer, as if the truth she'd finally shared had taken a weight off her shoulders. She still looked tired, still flinched when her phone buzzed from the drawer, but she wasn't carrying everything alone anymore. And now that I knew the full truth, I wasn't carrying it quietly. I had work to do. After dropping Lily off at school, she insisted on going. She said she didn't want to fall behind. I parked a block away from Daniel's apartment building. Not to confront him in person, I had no intention of giving him the chaos he thrived on. No, I was there because of a single line Ms. Reyes had told me the day before. Judges care about stability more than anything else. And stability wasn't something that could be crafted in words, it had to be seen. Daniel lived in a small, cluttered second-floor walk-up with questionable carpeting and peeling paint. I had been there a handful of times during drop-offs. Each time, the place looked different, not better, just rearranged. The kind of rearranging done by people searching for control in chaos. Today, I wanted proof. I took a few photos from the outside, the broken railing, the overflowing trash pile near the stairs, the sign on the entrance door warning about non-residents loitering. None of it was dangerous, but none of it screamed stability either. I wasn't building a case against him out of spite. I was building one out of clarity. Out of truth. Because once a man pressures a 13-year-old girl to uproot her life without her own desire, his home environment becomes part of the story. After documenting what I could, I drove away, calm, steady, and more resolved than ever. When I picked Lily up after school, she climbed into the car and gave me a small smile. Not bright, not carefree, but real. "How was today?" I asked. She shrugged softly. "I talked to Mrs. Hart again." "How did that feel?" "Better." A pause. I told her I don't want to live with Dad. I told her I just want him to stop being mad at me. "And what did she say?" "She said adults are responsible for their own feelings." I smiled gently. "She's right." Lily stared at her hands, twisting her fingers together. "Mom, what if Dad hates me now?" I shook my head immediately. "Sweetheart, listen to me. Your father may be frustrated, he may be embarrassed, but any parent who loves their child cannot hate them for telling the truth." "I'll tell you." Nodded slowly, absorbing the words the way a thirsty plant absorbs water. We drove home with the windows slightly cracked. The air carried a soft, cool breeze, and Lily rested her head against the seat, eyes half closed. She looked peaceful for the first time in a long time. When we got home, I sat at the table and gathered every piece of evidence I had: screenshots, printed messages, photos, my own written account, even timestamps on call logs. I'm not a confrontational person by nature, but motherhood changes your definition of confrontation. It becomes less about winning and more about protecting. While I organized the paperwork, Lily walked out of her room wearing pajamas even though it was barely 5 p.m. She looked at the pile of documents and frowned. "Is this all because of me?" I reached over and took her hand. "It's because of what someone did to you, not because of you." She climbed into my lap, something she hadn't done since she was 9, and rested her head on my shoulder. "I'm scared to see him again," she whispered. "I know," I said softly, "and you won't see him alone, not ever again." Her arms tightened around me. "Thank you, Mom." I kissed the top of her head. "Always." Around 6:30, my phone buzzed. It was Ms. Ray's. "We have a court date," she said. "The judge prioritized the request. It's set for Thursday at 2 p.m. That was faster than I expected. "Well, thank you," I said. "This is good," she replied. "The sooner we address this, the safer Lily will feel." I hung up and exhaled slowly. Thursday, 2 days away. And I knew Daniel well enough to expect some kind of reaction before then. It came sooner than I thought. At 8:15 that night, there was a loud knock on the door. Lily froze. Her eyes widened, breath caught in her chest. "Mom, is that?" "I don't know," I whispered, standing up carefully. I walked to the peephole. Daniel. His posture stiff, his expression tight, his jaw clenched like he was holding words hostage behind his teeth. I opened the door only a few inches, enough for him to see me, not enough for him to step inside. He gave a tense smile. "We need to talk." "No," I said calmly, "we don't." He scoffed. "Come on, Emma, don't be ridiculous, let me in." "Absolutely not." He stepped forward, but I didn't move. "You told me I can't see my own daughter. You really think you get to make that decision?" "You manipulated her," I said. "You scared her, you crossed a line you can't uncross." His eyes flared. "I didn't scare her, you're twisting things like you always do." I kept my voice quiet, steady. "She cried in my arms, Daniel, she told me everything." For a split second, something in his expression cracked: panic, embarrassment, maybe even guilt, before he masked it with anger again. "I was trying to connect," he snapped. "I was trying to be a better father than you ever let me be." I felt Lily behind me trembling. She'd come up silently, hugging herself, eyes wide. I stepped aside just enough so Daniel could see her, not close enough for him to reach her, but close enough for him to see her fear. And he did. It hit him like a slap. Her posture, her shaking, her tearful eyes. His voice softened, an instinctive shift. "Lily, princess, come here." She flinched backward so hard she hit the wall. That was all he needed to see. And all I needed to prove. I closed the door halfway, blocking him again. "She doesn't feel safe with you," I said quietly, "and until a judge says otherwise, you won't speak to her alone." He swallowed, his voice cracking at the edges. "You're going to regret this." "No," I said, "I'm going to protect my daughter." And then, slowly and deliberately, I closed the door. He didn't knock again. He didn't yell. He walked away. And for the first time in months, Lily exhaled a breath that didn't shake. Later, as she fell asleep beside me on the couch, her head resting on my arm, I realized something. You don't have to fight loudly to win. You just have to stand steady and refuse to move. When someone tries to push you off your ground, the hardest battles are often the quietest ones. And ours was just beginning to unfold. The courthouse was quieter than I expected that Thursday afternoon. The kind of quiet that feels too still, like everyone inside is holding their breath for someone else's storm. Lily stayed home with Mrs. Hart. The school counselor offered to watch her during the hearing so she wouldn't have to face anything she wasn't ready for. I walked through the courthouse doors alone, holding a folder thick with printed messages, photos, and notes. My hands didn't shake, not anymore. A strange calm had settled over me, the sort that comes when emotion gives way to purpose. Ms. Reyes met me at the security checkpoint. "You okay?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. "I'm ready," I said. "Good," she nodded. "Truth works in quiet ways, trust it." We walked into the small courtroom. Daniel was already there. He sat at the respondent's table, jaw arms folded, leg bouncing. He didn't look like the charming, breezy version of himself I'd known years ago. He looked cornered, agitated, defensive. When he saw me, he stood up abruptly. "Emma, can we talk before this starts?" I didn't break stride, no. "You're blowing this out of the water," he hissed, stepping toward me. "We can handle this privately." Before I could respond, Ms. Reyes stepped neatly between us like it was choreography. "Mr. Collins," she said, "step back now." He scoffed, raising his hands dramatically. Unbelievable. But he stepped back, and I walked past him without looking. When the hearing began, the judge, a woman in her early 60s with sharp eyes and a voice that held nothing unnecessary, called the session to order. Ms. Reyes briefly outlined the issue. "Your Honor, we are here today regarding coercive communication, manipulation, and emotional pressure exerted on a minor by her father." Daniel's attorney jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, this is exaggerated." "Sit," the judge said without looking at him. Well, he sat. Ms. Reyes continued, calm and uncluttered. "We have evidence in the form of text messages. We also have statements from the school counselor and the mother documenting the minor's distress." The judge turned to me. "Mrs. Hartman, you may step forward." My legs felt heavy as I stood, but my voice, when it came, was steady. I told the truth simply, how Lily had withdrawn, how she'd cried, how she'd clutched her phone like a lifeline she didn't want. I didn't embellish. I didn't dramatize. I just described what happened. The judge listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, "Do you have the messages?" I handed them over. She read in silence. The courtroom air thinned, as though every person inside had forgotten how to breathe. Daniel stared at his knees, face stiff and pale. After a long pause, the judge lifted her eyes. "Mr. Collins," she said, "approach." He stood, walked forward, shoulders square, chin high, trying to look respectable, but the slight tremor in his hand betrayed him. "Did you send these messages to your daughter?" He swallowed. "Yes, but..." "Did you ask her to lie to her mother?" "I didn't ask." "Did you imply that you would be disappointed if she didn't tell her mother she wanted to live with you?" He hesitated. "I might have." "Did you tell her that you had already informed people she was moving in?" Silence. He shifted. "Yes." The judge leaned back in her chair. "And did you tell her that if she didn't tell her mother soon, it wouldn't be pretty?" Daniel closed his eyes. "That phrase was taken out of context," he muttered. The judge tapped the paper. "There is no context in which that phrase is appropriate to send to a 13-year-old child." He didn't respond. The judge looked down at the messages again, then at me, then at Daniel. "Mr. Collins, your behavior demonstrates coercive control, emotional manipulation, and a troubling disregard for your daughter's psychological well-being." His attorney tried again. "Your Honor." "Sit," she repeated without raising her voice. His attorney sank back into his chair. The judge folded her hands. "Effective immediately, all communication between you and your daughter will be suspended except through a court-approved, state-monitored app. No phone calls, no in-person visits without supervision, no unfiltered messages. Daniel's head snapped up. That's not fair. It is not meant to be fair, she corrected. It is meant to be safe. He opened his mouth again, but she cut him off. Mr. Collins, your daughter is not a prize to be won. She is not emotional currency, and she is not responsible for catering to your insecurities. Her words rang through the courtroom, echoing off wood and glass and the pieces of truth Daniel had tried so hard to hide. She looked toward me. Ms. Hartman, you acted appropriately. Continue therapy support and report any further concerns. I exhaled, the tension draining slowly, like a valve finally releasing. This court is adjourned. Her gavel tapped lightly, just a sound, just wood on wood, but it felt like thunder rolling through the room. As people stood and gathered their things, Daniel approached me. His steps were stiff, expression tight. This is your fault, he said quietly, voice shaking with anger he was trying to bury. I met his eyes. No, I said gently, this is the consequence of your choices. His nostrils flared, but he didn't speak again. He walked away, hands stuffed in his pockets, shoulders curled inward. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear around him. Only clarity. Only truth. When I stepped outside, the autumn air felt crisp and free. I pulled out my phone and texted Mrs. Hart. We're done, headed to get Lily. She wrote back instantly. She's smiling, I'll tell her you're on your way. That message alone softened me to my bones. For the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe fully. The truth was out. Witnessed, seen, named, and the consequences, public undeniable, had begun. When I arrived at the school to pick up Lily, she was sitting in Mrs. Hart's office coloring, something she hadn't done since elementary school. She looked up when I walked in, her face blooming into a smile so innocent and relieved it made my throat tighten. Mom, she said, standing up quickly. I opened my arms, and she rushed into them with a force that felt like healing. I held her close, breathing in the scent of her coconut shampoo and crayons, and the faint smell of the pumpkin-scented candle Mrs. Hart always kept burning. You okay? I whispered. She nodded against my chest. Did it go good? I pulled back slightly and brushed her hair from her forehead. It went right, I said softly. The judge understood everything. She exhaled a long breath she must have been holding all day. So, Dad won't be mad at me. No, sweetheart, I said, shaking my head. He'll have rules to follow now, and you don't have to talk to him alone anymore. She blinked slowly, like she was absorbing each word carefully. So he can't send those kinds of messages anymore. No, I said, not ever again. Mrs. Hart stood quietly near her desk, watching us with a gentle smile. Lily was brave today, she said. She even helped another student with a puzzle while she waited. Lily's cheeks warmed. I just didn't want to think about stuff. That's brave too, Mrs. Hart replied. We thanked her and left, Lily clutching my hand as we walked to the car. She seemed lighter, her steps not dragging the way they had been. When we got inside, she buckled her seatbelt and looked at me with a tiny, hesitant smile. Mom, can we get ice cream? The simplest request, the sweetest one. Of course, I said. At the little ice cream shop near our apartment, Lily chose mint chocolate chip and sat across from me in a booth painted with peeling teal paint. She took a slow bite, letting the cold melt on her tongue. Mom, she said softly. Ahmed, is Dad going to be mad at you? I paused, choosing my words with care. He might be upset, but adults are supposed to handle their feelings without hurting other people, especially kids. She nodded, her spoon tracing circles in her cup. And I continued gently, I'm strong enough to handle whatever he feels. You don't have to carry it for either of us anymore. Her eyes glistened. I didn't want to hurt him. I know, I said softly, but protecting someone shouldn't mean breaking yourself. She looked down at her ice cream. I didn't want to hurt you either. My heart twisted, but I leaned forward and took her hands in mine. You never hurt me, you were scared, and even scared you still found your way to the truth. That takes courage. Her chin trembled, but she didn't cry. Instead, she squeezed my hands back. We sat there for a long time, just breathing in the sweetness of mint and vanilla and relief. Later that evening, after we got home, the world seemed softer somehow. Lily did her homework on the couch while I made dinner. She hummed again, her little three-note tune I hadn't heard in days. It floated through the apartment like a sign of normalcy returning. I chopped vegetables while listening to her, letting the music of her hum stitch the air back together. Halfway through dinner, her phone buzzed in the drawer. She froze. "It's okay," I said gently. "Let me check." I opened the drawer and looked at the screen. A notification from the court-monitored communication app. A single line. From Daniel. "Hi Lily, hope your day was good. No pressure. No manipulation. No threats. Just something plain. Almost human." The app automatically forwarded the message to Ms. Reyes and recorded it as part of the ongoing documentation. I showed it to Lily. "See, this is the only way he can talk to you now, and only when you want." She stared at the message for a moment, then nodded. "Okay. Do you want to reply?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not right now." "That's perfectly fine." She went back to her food, her shoulders relaxing again. And for the first time, she didn't jump at the sound of a notification. The next couple of days passed quietly, but quietly in a good way. A steady way. Word spread among our small circle: teachers, the school counselor, the attorney's staff, and every response was the same mixture of support, concern, and respect. People saw what happened. People knew what Daniel did. People recognized Lily's fear and my action for what they were. Protective, not vindictive. And in a strange way, that public acknowledgement mattered. Because it meant Lily wasn't carrying shame. The wrongdoing wasn't hers. It had a name, and it had been witnessed. One afternoon, as we walked through the hallway at school, I overheard another teacher whisper, "That poor kid, I'm glad her mom did something." I didn't turn to look. I didn't need to. But I felt something settle inside me. Something warm. Something strong. Not pride. Not triumph. Just a peace. The kind that comes when the truth is no longer hidden. When the community says. When the consequences unfold in daylight, not behind closed doors. And as Lily slipped her hand into mine on the way out the door, her voice small but steady, she said, "It feels safe now." And it truly did. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't arrive with a dramatic flourish or a grand moment of revelation. Sometimes it comes in tiny pieces, small enough that you almost miss them. In the weeks following the court hearing, our life slowly began stitching itself back together. Not perfectly, life isn't perfect, but gently, the way a torn quilt comes together when someone patient takes the time to mend it. The first piece came the morning Lily woke up and made her own breakfast. It seems like nothing, I know, but after everything she went through, the fear, the secrecy, the weight of trying to protect both her parents, seeing her pour cereal with both hands steady felt like sunlight after a long storm. She sat at the table in her oversized hoodie, spoon tapping the ceramic bowl, and said, "Mom, can we go to the library after school?" The library, her safe place, our safe place. "Of course," I said, and something soft unfurled inside me. The next piece came from the school counselor. Lily had continued her sessions with Mrs. Hart, who gently helped her untangle the guilt that had wrapped around her ribs. One afternoon, when I arrived to pick her up, Mrs. Hart walked out with her. "She drew something today," Mrs. Hart said, handing me a folded piece of paper. "I asked if she wanted to give it to you." Lily blushed, looking down at her shoes. When we got in the car, I opened it. It was a simple drawing, colored pencils on notebook paper. Just two figures, one taller, one smaller, both holding hands, and above us, in Lily's handwriting, "Safe with Mom." My eyes stung instantly, not from sadness but from a fierce, tender gratitude. I leaned over and kissed her forehead. "I love it," I said, "thank you." She smiled shyly, then looked out the window, cheeks warm with something like pride. At home, the atmosphere shifted little by little. Lily hummed again while brushing her hair. She talked more at dinner, her stories growing longer, fuller, sprinkled with jokes and observations she'd once been too anxious to share. One night, as we watched a movie, she leaned against me with her head on my shoulder. No fear, no tension. Just closeness. Mom, she whispered. Oh, yes, baby. I don't think I want to live with Dad, not even when things are better. I like it here. I didn't push, I didn't correct her. I just wrapped my arm around her and said, You live wherever you feel loved and safe. She nodded, eyes still on the screen. But her hand found mine's, and she held it. Healing also came from the boundaries put in place. The monitored messages from Daniel were infrequent and bland. A supervised visitation center had contacted us to schedule an initial meeting, but Lily wasn't ready, and legally she didn't have to be. Every time a message came through the app, I would show it to her and simply ask, Do you want to respond? Most days, she said no. Other days, she wrote something simple. I'm okay. The school was fine. Good night. Short, steady, no pressure, no fear. And for the first time, he had boundaries he had to follow, not her. That alone shifted something inside our home. One of the biggest signs of healing came unexpectedly. We were driving home from school when Lily said, Mom, do you think people who hurt us can get better? I kept my eyes on the road, thinking carefully. I think people can change if they truly want to, but it's not your job to fix them. She tangled a piece of her hair between her fingers. I know, I wonder if Dad will ever understand what he did. I hope he does, I said honestly. For his sake, but even if he doesn't, you've already done the brave part. She looked at me, what part? Telling the truth, I said, and choosing yourself. Her eyes softened. Choosing yourself is one of the hardest things a child can do when guilt has been woven into their understanding of love. But Lily was doing it. Piece by piece. Day by day. The final piece of healing, at least in those early weeks, came one night after dinner. I was washing dishes when Lily came up behind me and slipped her arms around my waist. She wasn't a child who hugged often, especially not from behind. She'd always been shy that way. But she leaned her cheek against my back and whispered, Mom, thank you for not being mad at me. I turned, dried my hands, and knelt so we were eye level. I was never mad at you. But I almost lied to you, she said softly. No, I said, cupping her face gently. You were trying to protect someone you loved. That's not lying, that's being human. Her eyes glistened. And you told me the truth, I continued. Even though you were scared, that's what matters. She nodded slowly, her eyes softening. Then, in a voice barely above a breath, she said the words that settled deep inside me. I'm glad I live with you. I pulled her into my arms and held her for a long time, feeling her heartbeat against mine. Safe, steady, healing. Our life wasn't perfect. It wasn't wrapped in a bow, but it was real and it was honest, and it belonged to us. And that was enough. More than enough. The hardest part of healing is the quiet. Not the chaos, not the courtroom, not the confrontation. But the days afterward, when life returns to ordinary rhythms and you're left listening to your own breathing again. That's where the real work happens. Where the small moments rebuild what someone tried so hard to break. In the weeks that followed, I began noticing subtle changes in Lily, tiny pieces of herself returning like wayward birds finally making their way home. Some mornings, she woke up humming. Some evenings, she asked me if I wanted to paint our nails together. Some nights, she fell asleep without checking her phone even once. Each change was small, but each one said the same thing. She was coming back to herself. It was late November when Lily asked if she could redecorate her room. Just a little, she said, twirling a colored pencil between her fingers. I want it to feel new. New. Fresh. Hers. Of course, I said, smiling. We spent that weekend moving furniture, hanging string lights, replacing old posters with new ones. Her favorite band, a watercolor moon, a quote she taped above her dresser. You are safe, you are loved, you are enough. She'd written it herself, in her own handwritings. I watched her step back and admire it, her head tilted, her expression thoughtful. That little affirmation wasn't for decoration. It was a seed she was planting inside herself. While we worked, she told me about school drama, about a girl named Isabel who always bragged about her dog, and about how she wished she could join art club but worried she was good enough. You don't have to be good, I said, you just have to enjoy it. She paused, looking at me. Really? Really? The following Tuesday, she signed up and walked into that art classroom with her sketchbook pressed to her chest and a hopeful little smile. Healing also came through structure, the boundaries the court put in place. The monitored messages allowed Lily to choose when she wanted contact, and the visitation center reached out carefully, respectfully. Whenever she's ready, I told them, not before. Of course, the coordinator replied, her comfort comes first. And for once, the adults in the situation all agreed. Lily had control. She had space. She had protection. And it showed. Her shoulders didn't curl in anymore when she heard a notification sound. Her heart didn't leap in fear when the supervised visitation director sent monthly check-ins. Instead, she simply said, I'll tell you when I'm ready. Every choice was hers. Every step was hers. That strength, that voice, she'd earned it. One evening, maybe a month after the hearing, we were cooking together. Lily was stirring pasta sauce while I chopped basil. She turned to me suddenly and said, Mom, do you think Dad ever understood what he did? I thought for a moment before answering. I think he understood it when he saw how scared you were. She nodded slowly. Do you think people who mess up can still love you? Yes, I said softly, but love isn't enough if it hurts. Real love makes you feel safe. She stirred the sauce in small circles. I want him to get better. That's a kind wish, I said, brushing a piece of hair behind her ear. But his healing is his responsibility. Yours is yours. She took a slow breath. I think I'm getting better. You are, I said, smiling, every day. Her eyes shimmered a little, but she didn't look away. She held the moment with bravery, the way someone holds their breath just before stepping into sunlight. The real turning point, the moment I knew she had crossed the threshold of healing, came on a cold December evening. We were driving home from the store, holiday lights blinking from neighborhood houses. Lily's phone buzzed with a message from the monitored app. She glanced at it, then read it out loud. Hope you're doing well. Let me know if you want to talk sometime. No pressure. Dad. She read it calmly, without flinching, without shrinking. Then she put her phone down and said, I'm not ready yet, but it didn't make my stomach hurt this time. I smiled at her gently. That's growth. She nodded, watching the lights pass by the window. I think I want to talk to him one day, but only when I feel strong, not scared. And that day will come, I said, whenever you choose it. She leaned back in her seat and whispered, almost to herself, I'm not scared anymore. My eyes softened as I watched her through the rearview mirror. The steady way she exhaled, the quiet confidence in her posture, the peace settling across her features. She walked a th. Rough a storm she didn't choose. She'd carried guilt that wasn't hers. She'd faced manipulation she was too young to understand. But she had survived. She had spoken. She had healed. And she had learned something many adults never do. Loyalty is not the same as obligation. Love is not supposed to hurt. And safety is a form of grace. That night after she fell asleep, I stood at her bedroom door for a long moment, watching her breathe peacefully under her string lights. Her room glowed with warmth. Her walls held her drawings. Her desk was covered in paintbrushes and little half-finished sketches. Her life, our life, felt whole again. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was honest. And honesty is the ground healing grows from. When I look back now, I see the whole journey in pieces. Small moments, quiet truths, hidden fears, and sharp awakenings stitched together into something I never asked for, but something that changed me forever as a mother. I used to think the biggest threats in life came from outside, strangers, accidents, the unknown. But sometimes, the hardest battles come from the people we once trusted most. The people we once loved in a way we thought would never turn sharp. And sometimes, those battles happen in silence. I learned that a child can be smiling and still be scared. They can be laughing and still be hurting. They can be standing right in front of you with their shoelaces tied and their hair brushed and their homework done, while carrying guilt so heavy it bends them in half. I learned that a mother's intuition is not just a feeling. It's a warning, a whisper, a truth trying to reach you through the noise of everyday life. And I learned that protecting your child doesn't always look like lions roar. Sometimes it looks like paperwork, courtrooms, phone calls, a steady voice when someone tries to provoke you, a quiet firmness when someone tries to twist the story. Sometimes the strongest thing a mother can do is not shout, but not move. And Lily, my sweet, brave girl, she learned something too. She learned that love is not measured by how much pain you can endure for someone. It's measured by how safe you feel in their presence, how gently they hold your heart, how willing they are to put your well-being above their own pride. My daughter said she wanted to live with her father, but once I learned why, I realized she wasn't choosing him over me. She was choosing his feelings over her safety, his approval over her peace, his needs over her own small, tender voice. And that's a burden no child should ever carry. Today, she is healing. Not perfectly, not instantly, but honestly. And I am healing too. Not from losing her, but from almost losing the truth. We sit together most evenings now, sharing tea or watching a show or just talking about how her day went. She laughs again, the kind of laugh that fills the room, not the forced one she used to give to hide her fear. And every time she smiles with her whole face, I remember why I fought, why I stood firm, why I refused to let guilt disguise itself as love. Because she deserved better. And she finally knows that now. If you were in my position, would you have done the same? Tell me in the comments. And if you'd like to hear more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. Thank you for listening.